Okay, a very good morning to everyone present here. Today we have a special lecture which is to be delivered by Mr. Chepuzo Kapfor. He's currently based in Seoul, which is Republic of Korea, as a researcher in ACTS. He will be delivering on some basic guide about academic writing for the interest of postgraduate students. And our students who are postgraduate level, they have joined. I extend my warm welcome to all our students, the faculty, and most of all, the speaker for today's session. We are honored to have you with us. We will be having more discussions after your session come to an end. So without delay, I now invite you to please take over.
Okay, so today our lecture will be a guide to academic writing. And maybe as you see this picture, now you must be aware, a few years ago, Steve Jobs, he died, and he's the co-founder of Apple, which the device which is we are very fond of, which is very helpful to us as well. And one of his famous quotes, he said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." So that's one of the famous quote that he said, and which means what he's trying to say here is we have to always be curious to learn something new and stay foolish. Sometimes people may think that we are stupid doing some unconventional stuff, but if you stay hungry, then at the end you prove them wrong. And I want to challenge you with this quote that as we learn this academic writing, we will be able to prove ourselves wrong. Maybe we think that there's a lot of things to grab and it's hard, but I believe that we can be curious to learn more, and then we will achieve something through this class. Okay, to start with the introduction, since we are talking about academic writing, I want to start with the introduction based on the scholarly work. So most of the academic writing we can also call as scholarly work. It communicates with preciseness and clarity, and also with accuracy, ethics, and honesty, and reason and creativity. So when we do something from research work, these are the goals that we try to embrace it in our work, to be precise, to convey with clarity, and to practice honesty and ethics, and also with a lot of reasoning and creativity in our paper. And we, all of us, as a postgraduate students, as a scholar, we must write clearly, with accuracy and honestly. So today this will be our lecture goal, that at the end of our class, I believe that we will be able to practice this quality. So as we are the academic writers, our papers, our dissertation, our thesis, or our journal papers, whatever it is, it should be concise, it should be logical, and it should be clear, and it should be organized. And also, we have to be how to think and read and write critically, which talks about the reasoning. And also the paper should be built up logical and with a clear argument. And we also need to know that we should use academic language, and also proper formatting of academic papers, which means the principles, the rules that we have to follow for academic paper. Then the next question is, then what is a research? And why do we do it? The first one, what is it about? We gather information. And why do we do that? To solve problems, to mitigate problems. That's why we gather data and we do research. Then the next things come. Then what is good writing? Good writing also means our clear thinking. What we think, we put in the act of writing. So whatever we are writing is a reflection, is a mirror in our writing. Then what makes a scholarly writing? Or in other words, what makes the qualities of effective thinking? So these are the qualities, as you can see, in the screen. The first one, logic. It should be logical. Precision. It should be precise or with the precision. It should convey with clarity, with directness, not beating around the bush, and with brevity. So all these qualities together makes a quality of a scholarly writing, makes a good paper, or makes our thinking effective. So today we'll be talking about these 5 procedures which are the characteristic of academic writing. The first one we're going to deal with is audience. Second one is purpose. And the third one is organization. And the fourth one is style. And the fifth one is the flow of the paper. First, we'll go the audience. We must be very careful when we write academic writing or in any area or field, in your field of study. We have to know the audience. Knowing the audience helps you and me to make decisions about what information you should include, how it should be arranged, and the way, the tone that we use to convey that message. So the purpose and the strategy. Audience, the purpose and the strategy are interconnected. How? Let me explain. So in terms of audience who know lesser than you, or who is in academic sense, who is junior than you may assume that he's knowing less than you, and for that writer's purpose, you're often to be instructional. And the audience whom you think they know more than you can refer to our professor or our teacher. We try to display our familiarity, expertise, and intelligence. So there's a difference when we try to write a paper. Knowing our audience is very important. We cannot use a technical term and write in our paper to farmers. In the same way, we have a different field. So knowing the audience makes us to think and write in a better way. Okay, here, as you can see in the picture, actually this is one of the pictures that one of my professor showed us. He was trying to impress the professor. So usually in many cases, not in many cases, but most of the time, students want to write something in an exam or paper to impress the professor. So as you can see in the picture, Guy, the student, is trying to impress his professor with a wine. So in the same way, our intention must be to become an expert. What I'm trying to say here is to write an academic paper in a higher level, our intention must be to become an expert, not a mediocre, not just for the sake of writing. And the organization. So to organize the paper in a proper way, it should follow a structured format. It should follow a certain pattern. So I'll show you the example. So as you can see in the format, there is a pattern when you write a letter. In the same way, in our paper, when we follow a proper format, people can read it easily because they know the pattern. Or if you know the pattern, then you can write. That will help you to write the paper more easily in a good flow. Okay. There's still another organization. When we talk about organizing paper, we can break it down into external and internal. When we say external, we try to, when we write a paper, we try to write it chapters, and within chapters, we try to break it into sections. And after section, then we break it down into paragraphs. And we also have internal organization, which we call it the ideas that we present within that paragraph, or use of triads. I'll explain more about triads. So here, in a micro level sense, it contains subject, verb, or object. So the best example that I can give you is I love you, which means I is subject, love is verb, or object is you. So that makes a full sentence. So that conveys the whole message, that what it means. So a sentence should consist subject, verb, and object complement. And as you can see in the picture, it's very, very helpful for us to understand what I'm talking about here. Triad. That person, as you can see in the picture, there's only one stand, which is hard to stand. He needs support. And here you need two stand, but you still need one support to make it strong. And here we have tripod, which make it the stand more stronger to hold that camera. In the same way, when we make arguments, when we have more evidence, evidence 1 or evidence 2 or evidence 3 and so forth, that makes our argument very, very strong. And when we break it down into paragraph level, I'm talking about the paragraph, it's like a burger. You see the bread in top and the bottom, but in between there's lettuce, there's a meat, there's a ham, whatever it is, and that makes burger complete. Without that, just imagine putting the ham on top of the bread. That wouldn't make sense. That would not be easy to eat. So in the same way, in the paragraph level, it should start with a topic sentence, the point that you're making with, and paragraph, and you have to make a concluding sentence. And as a whole, in the whole paper, you should follow this format: introduction, body content, and conclusion sentence. That makes the whole paper argument with a good flow. And the next one is style. So when we say style, we try to say that using a certain word consistently proper. You may use one term in the beginning and use other term at the end. It confuses the reader, so you should be aware of that. So what is academic style? What is not academic style? I'll show you some example. So here, we see that in one of the informal way is, as you can see, given our fast-paced society, people must routinely put. And when we use informal, we use implement. So we can see the difference. So you can find this kind of word. When you Google it, you have to choose which one is the more formal one in our academic writing. So there's one more example, number 1 and 2, which I have highlighted. Look at that is more informal, observe, which is more formal. So these are the examples that in our style, in academic writing, we have to choose the appropriate one to make our paper more academic. And when it comes to style, there are certain rules. Using I and we. When we use too much I and we, it becomes very subjective in our paper. So to make it more objective, we try to use on the right hand side. So the first one is using I, argue. You can also use sometimes, but I recommend you to use in your research academic paper to use the second example. This paper argues instead of I argue. And the second one, avoid contraction. When you write academic writing, don't use contraction, won't. Instead, use will not, don't. Don't use kind of won't, don't, but use do not, will not. That make it academic, more academic. And the third one is use of formal negative forms. The problem doesn't have many, and the example, the right one is it should be has few. So don't use contraction and use a formal negative form when you use that. And the next one is avoid expression and so forth and etc. So in the academic, they say that it shows you laziness. But what should you do is you should categorize the list. So the example is instead of using etc. or so forth, you can use and other electronic devices. So these are the examples that we can use in our academic writing. And instead of using you, especially since you're in the social science, you may use a lot of graphic paper for data collection. You better use the second one, which is more academic, instead of using you. And the next one is flow. So moving from one statement in the next. So when there's a flow, the readers find it easy to follow your argument, to follow your paper. So make sure that your paper has a flow. So this is one of the examples. The river, you can see in the picture that there's a good flow, there's a waterfall. So when the river, it goes here and there, what happens? When you throw something, there's a lot of trees in between, the water goes this way and that way. It's not easy for water to flow in a proper way. In the same way, when you put too much in between and when there's no flow, the readers find it hard to follow your argument and they cannot understand what you are trying to convey. So we should use linking words and phrases. So these are the example. You can find these linking words and phrases in the Google, so you can find it. Cause and effect, you can use because, see. Contrast, you can use while, or illustration, you can use for example, for instance. I will not explain much further here. And to maintain the flow, this is one of the examples. So the first part, the first 3 lines is talking about something, the difference between formal and informal. So to make the flow of the next sentence, instead of writing the whole things again, you write it this understanding, which means we understood that, oh, it's talking about the previous sentences. So this is another example. Okay, here's what I want to emphasize again. Plagiarism is one of the most serious crimes in academia. And it's kind of sad also, but I read an article a few days ago that plagiarism is really on the rise in India, and it's becoming more strict. In Europe and USA, in the first world country, when you plagiarize something, you are automatically kicked out from the university. There's no second chance. So what I mean here is, sometimes because we don't know what plagiarism is, but now since everybody have the access in a computer, when you plagiarize, when you put your paper, everybody can see where you get that source from. And even if you get your doctoral degree, PhD degree, if you have been found as plagiarized, your degree may be even terminated. So it's a very serious one. And I want to emphasize, it's literally saying that you are taking others' idea is a theft in academia. So these are the different type of plagiarism. When you copy exactly from the source, from the internet, and paste it, we call it direct plagiarism. Or patchwork, which means getting ideas from here and there and you try to arrange it without acknowledging, without citation, that become a patchwork plagiarism. And also quotation. You feel like you're paraphrasing, but you copy other material without much changing. That also becomes plagiarism. Paraphrasing without citation. You may be reading one book and you want to get that idea, so you try to change that word of original source, but you didn't cite it. So that also becomes plagiarism. And since you are in the social science field, you may use graphs and those tables. If you use other table, and if you don't cite it, that can also be considered as plagiarism. And also misrepresentation. Usually common knowledge, you don't need to cite, but if that sentence is not common language, then it can also be plagiarized. For example, the common knowledge would be there are 365 days in a year. That's a common knowledge everybody knows. But that is a common knowledge, but if there are other knowledge which you try to categorize into common knowledge, that can become plagiarism. And how to avoid plagiarism? Use plagiarism and anti-plagiarism software, paraphrasing, quoting, and citing. And to paraphrase, we need to change the word. We need to change the sentence structure, word order, expression, and idea order. So this is one of the example. I don't think we have enough time to go through all of that, but later on, if you have questions, then we may come back. So you can use the technique original text, that is the text that we are supposed to change. Using the synonyms, you can change this concept to ideas. And when you use nominalization, we change from verb to noun, and also from active voice to passive voice. Then we paraphrase it nicely, but also we have to cite again. Okay, this is the last section. Okay, then how do we write a journal paper, or how do we do research? We need to learn some methodology. So to begin with our research, we need to ask question: what is my belief, or what is that thing that what my answers look like, or what are the reasons? So you have to provide a strong evidence, and analysis. So these are the three conceptual questions. Three arguments to begin with a question. The first one is conceptual, second one is practical, and the third one is applied questions. Okay, so when you write a thesis, we need to break it down into narrow topic. We cannot deal the whole general topic. So for example, if you want to deal with the pollution, then you have to break it down into acid rain, then acid rain in the United States, something like that. So you have to narrow it down. Okay, here, when you start a paper, you need a thesis. Every paper need a thesis. So you need a reason to support, and each reason usually requires additional support. So here, so when you make a thesis, when you make a statement, when you start a paper, you need to have some claim, proposition in the beginning that my paper is going to be in this way. And you have to claim the definition, and then you have to claim the cause and the consequence and the evaluation and the criticism. And also at the end part of the paper, you have to put the practical claim, which is, okay, this is based on my evidence, based on this paper, there should be this certain policy, there should be a certain action which is recommended based on this evidence. So to explain more, when we say practical claims, we ask this question: what your solution is feasible, how it can be implemented with reasonable time and effort. You should ask this question when you write your recommended policies in your paper, or why it will cost less to implement than the cost of the problem, or why it will not create a bigger problem than the one it solves, why it is cheaper or faster than alternative solutions. So having this kind of question will give you a strong statement in your paper. So this is basically following all those we have discussed. Imagine your outline structure should be like this. So your thesis statement, that my paper is this. My paper claims that this, and so. And then the body part, okay, the reason, and with three supports, and the reason two, and support, and reason three, and support. And when you make all this, you follow this pattern and put your strong evidence and put a concluding remark, that makes become a scholarly, effective scholarly paper. So this is basically the structure for our thesis. The first one, you have to write a thesis, which means the claim that you are making, and the third is, because of this reason I am claiming that, and the third one is, based on this evidence there is so and so. So this is how you support your thesis. Then what is a thesis statement? Thesis statement is a declarative sentence that asserts the position of paper that you'll be taking. So in your paper, in the introduction, you should write the thesis statement that the paper is going to deal with this, and it's going to provide. And every journal or article or dissertation needs a thesis statement. Without a thesis statement, your arguments falls flat and your information is unfocused. So the readers will not find it interesting, will not find any interest with your paper. So thesis usually appears at the end of the first paragraph of a paper. There is in the introduction. This is the conclusion. Then what the conclusion should be? The conclusion should contain, restate the thesis statement. What you wrote in your thesis statement, you have to conclude. You have to write again. And you have to reiterate the key point of your work. On your paper, try to summarize it, all the key points, and explain the relevancy of the topic and the importance of your work, the evidence, the data that you collected. And end with a take-home message, or with the policy, or with the recommendation that you have made based on your evidence. So these are my references that I use for today, and I intentionally skip some of my slides. And if you have any question, if you have any doubt that you can ask, you can go back and I can simplify and explain to you more. So this is all for today, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. First, I would like to thank both of you for this wonderful lecture. Sir, you have shared your screen that stay hungry, stay foolish. So right now my situation is I'm in hungry and I'm in foolish because I'm in my dissertation work. Uh, I was full of confusion how to make and how to write. What is the objectives? What is the methodology I can use? I'm completely in dilemma. Our madam is teaching us, have been teaching us about this with a good, wonderful examples. I now with wonderful lecture from you for presentation. I got good, wonderful information, sir. I've really enjoyed and I've benefited from this in my future education. And sir, you have given some examples how methodology and how our subject. I have some noted some points, so I would like to share that. So qualities of scholar writings, you have shared that, and I've noted that point. So characteristics of academic writings with good examples and strategies and purpose. Another thing, sir. So you have given an example also, sir. Graduate student writing impress professor with Harry Potter's picture you have given. I got good, clarity on that. And the last one, sir, I would like to share that. And the traits you have given some example of origin traits. So I was in confusion, and with your examples, I got good clarity. You have used on burger also, for example, to understand very good in a simple sense. So I'm very wonderful. Enjoyed this session, and I would like to thank you so much. Your effort and madam effort, I was benefited 200%. Thank you so much.